Welcome back to the Blue Flash Station, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Death of Superman 2018. The comic book this is adapted from has been very close to my heart since I was a child because it was basically the first comic book I ever read growing up. As a kid, I grew up on Christopher Reeve's Superman, and when I saw this issue in the comic book stand, didn't think it was possible, and I kind of had to have it. My dad bought a couple of other Superman books back when he was still alive to kind of soften the blow a little bit, but uh, it really is my first introduction to comic books and kind of started me on that path to be a fan of a lot of the material for both this and eventually Marvel and all this other stuff. So it's very dear to my heart. Very dear to my heart. The whole thing: the Death of Superman, the Funeral for a Friend, Reign of the Superman, and I guess the Return of Superman. So I've had over the years the sad displeasure of seeing it kind of done very fucking poorly multiple times in my life. The Justice League animated series took pieces from it. It didn't even really make a real attempt. It was just invoking nostalgia things about it, but not really using it. I don't even want to get into that. Then they had they had an animated DVD of I think practically the same name as this one, and that was a erroneous disaster. They tried to do it all at once, and they wound up just taking out everything, and that was just fucking pointless. And then of course the most famous fuck up of this story of all time is of course the ending of BVS, and don't even I've been down that road before when I reviewed it, but you already know my opinion on that. So when I heard this was gonna be made, and they said it was going to be more faithful, finally, to the original content, and I was hoping that it would be basically a one-to-one adaptation or something close to that with little tiny minute changes, and basically not be linked to anything else and be its own thing and have the two parts. Basically like what they had the excellent job they did with the Dark Knight Returns. That's basically what I wanted for Superman, like that level of attention to detail and recreating the comic book I've known and loved on screen for the first time. Because this is not that, and I kind of found that out a little bit late. But this is not that. Uh, it's not, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It's not what I wanted. Let's get into details. This is basically kind of under the radar. WB Animation has kind of created their own little small DVD animated continuity, just as this U52 Justice League animated world that kind of kicked off with the Justice League War movie, and it's kind of continued on, more recently with Justice League vs. Teen Titans and all the other stuff, and Son of Batman and all that shit. So that's all kind of one continuous thing that all links into each other, and this kind of DVD animated continuity. So this is kind of taking the Death of Return as an event in that world that they've kind of set up. So that's what they did. New 52, as I recall, didn't really have Death of Superman Doomsday storyline. His death came through different means, but this is basically throwing the Death of Superman and eventually the part 2 later on, the Return of Superman and Reign of Superman and all that, and basically putting it in this world and making several changes to kind of accommodate the world that they've kind of created. So the question is, do the alterations does it hurt it? Well, I'll give you some minor examples. Like for a couple of examples, the most obvious being that the Cadmus is kind of the role of Cadmus has kind of been replaced by Lex. So Lex is going to be the one, filling out that role. For example, the Justice League team that fought Doomsday is not the same as the team that's in the comics, which doesn't really bother me that much because that team was relatively obscure. I mean, they not my favorite Justice League lineup ever, just not. So this is the more actual, well-known characters fighting Doomsday, which I'm totally cool with because it's more interesting. So that's kind of an actual improvement. That's a weird positive. And it kind of also feels at times they kind of shoehorn in a lot of stuff for all these Justice League characters a little bit. And sometimes it seems like Superman disappears off screen for way more than he should. When he's around, they make it count, and they do give him a relevant storyline with Lois and everything. And since in the previous DVDs, the Superman and Wonder Woman New 52 romance kind of had finally happened, but now this is several years past all that, and it's now a past tense, and he's with he just started dating Lois, but he hasn't told her his secret identity, even though in the original comic book we went past that part already. They went through all that, but now we're kind of dealing with it, kind of now. But so that's a little example of things that are kind of being flipped. People are being put or being present, but their roles are being replaced with new characters, or the situations behind the birth of the Superman is kind of being tampered with a little bit. Although this, like for example, I think they had to, since they didn't do the storyline of Hank Henshaw and his transformation into what he became as a Superman villain. So they didn't do that. So they did it here, a very short version of it. It's still pretty good. There's a lot of questions. Maybe they'll answer it at some point, but I guess and they're kind of shoehorning in this whole thing at the very beginning about Darkseid and giving tech to Intergang, which is the old song and dance. So I'm guessing Darkseid is going to be replacing Mongol's role near the end, near the end of the second part of this. So that's the kind of shit they're kind of doing. Certain storylines have kind of been removed because there's too much baggage to talk about and too much weirdness to deal with. Like Supergirl Matrix stuff completely discarded. Don't mind that. The Lex Luthor pretending to be his own son, that's completely A6. He's under like house arrest for some reason. I don't even know why. I'm still trying to figure out why. Maybe something happened in one of the other DVDs. I can't remember it that clearly because it's been so long ago. So, but either way, he's under house arrest in this. He's still doing his thing, anyway. So and he kind of like he didn't have a real presence in the original comic book storyline at all. He was just in the background, and that was kind of it. They made him more part of the plot, which I don't know how I feel about that. I'm getting kind of fucking sick of every single time. It's like Batman Joker syndrome that they have with Superman and Lex. Yes, Lex Luthor is Superman's most recognizable foil. Is his most recognizable. I get that. But that doesn't fucking mean he has to be in every fucking Superman story. Like there's hundreds of Superman stories that don't have Lex at all. And I think we're past that point where we have to shoehorn him into everything. But in this case, it's just a matter of they kind of handicap themselves a little bit by trying to force it into this pre-existing mold of this world they created. So they didn't do the groundwork to kind of lay out a lot of the organizations and characters that have been going on during Death of Superman. Because Death of Superman kind of starts in the comic book in the midst of all these other storylines that have already continued, and the continuity is still flowing. So they don't have time to kind of deal with all that baggage. So they're taking the devil's basically. But yeah, so pretty much, I mean, the animation is of course amazing, great. The quality on this has been consistent since they started Justice League War. So there's nothing really new to say there. There's some minor alterations to Doomsday design, but nothing, not a big deal. A little bit of a mohawk now, but his suit's about the same exact thing. The fight scene between Doomsday and Justice League is still very well done. I really liked it. Although it did seem like they kind of skip points in time in the fight. You kind of zoom away and you come back, and the fight kind of a lot of shit already happened. But overall, everybody got to try to do their thing against Doomsday. Batman tried to do his thing, and he was fucking useless as he should be. Wonder Woman has a great fight with Doomsday in this. It kicks the shit out of the BVS one, because this one actually is not obsessed with trying to make her put her over and make it seem like she was going to win that fight. Even we all know that's not possible. So, but this one, it was very good, very fierce, very heroic fight by her, and she's kind of fulfilling. She's kind of taking Maxima's role, because Maxima was the chick. She was the one that kind of chased after Doomsday after the Justice League had lost, and went after him and fought him tooth and nail. And the only reason she stopped was at Superman's behest. This one, she's kind of fulfilling that role, but she's not told to leave. She's forced out physically, and they add a little extra thing with Lex that was never there. But overall the changes and alterations. I think this the movie kind of comes in strong with the subplot between Superman and Lois kind of going through that thing that he doesn't want to tell her. She doesn't know what it is. There's trust issues there and other things, and he's so worried about dragging her into that life and all these other things, and he kind of interacts with different Justice League members to kind of discuss that. They do hit the whole him and Wonder Woman used to be an item thing. That's the first thing they talk about when they're on screen together. They basically bring it up that it was in a past tense. They don't get full on into why the breakup happened. They give you an idea. So they told you enough to you can get an idea of why it didn't work, and and stuff like that. So it's it's nice. Lois and Clark interacting with the parents. The first time she meets the Kents for the first time. Superman has this other side plot that he wants to reveal more of his back history to the world. And they also do a very good job. One of the most commendable things about this, that they did a very good job, that was very strong, besides the Lois and Clark Superman storyline having a very good payoff at the end, but also is that they really did a good job of kind of showing what Superman meant to regular people, and which is the most important thing you kind of have to show with the death of Superman. We all know what he means to his friends in the Justice League, but we never, we need to see what he means to the world, because he's supposed to be a symbol of hope, and people look to him for that, for hope, and they look up to him and they idolize him in kind of ways, and that's what I like about this world. It's not like fucking BVS where everybody's scared of him and all this other bullshit. This Superman's been active for a while, so we've kind of went past that. Lex is kind of the only one kind of preaching that we shouldn't rely on him and shit like that, like his normal mantra. So and they did a very good job with that. They kept some of the stuff with Bibbo and all that, and then his little bit that he says at the end from the comic book is still there, and it's very heartwarming. It's very sad. The funeral for a friend stuff is bang on. In the short time that they managed to do it, they fucking nailed it in this small time frame that they had to do it. And so the fights was good, the animation was good, the violence was where it should be. It's pretty much in line with the kind of violence they've been showing in a lot of the other anime DVDs for Warner Brothers. So it's not overly graphic, but it's not soft. There's a few cutaways, but the blood is there in a little bit, and it's not overly gory, but it has some gore in there. So it's not. Yeah, I still consider it PG-13ish in a sense. Not really an R. There's no swearing or anything like that, but it's pretty much more like a comic book. It has the violence and stuff like that. I think Doomsday's death scene is slightly more graphic than what it was in the comic book initially. So that's a little bit of improvement. The only other weirdness I kind of pissed me off a little bit. It's a little gripe, but they kind of got into this weird mode where they wanted to I don't know why the fuck would you do this. Wanted to pay homage to BVS of all things. That didn't sit well with me. For some weird reason, they gave Doomsday fucking heat vision eyes. They gave him the heat vision move that he uses two fucking times in a fight. You can't really control it, and it hurts him when he uses it. But he's not supposed to have heat vision. He doesn't fucking have heat vision. Never, ever. He doesn't even fucking need it. He's incapable of doing it. The original Doomsday can't do it. Doesn't need it. Shouldn't fucking have it. The only fucking reason they would feel the weird, dumbass idea to do that is somehow pay tiny homage to fucking BVS. And again, why would you pay homage to a movie that's not fucking well liked? It may very well have been the main fucking reason why Justice League bombed so fucking hard. Kind of not a good idea to remind people of that. I certainly didn't want to fucking be reminded of that. That movie, that their handling of the death of Superman was a fucking disgrace. It was not earned, and it was a fucking disgrace. I don't want to remember that. Why the fuck am I supposed to remember the worst fucking iteration, the worst attempt at adapting this? Why would you invoke that? That didn't. I didn't like that. I was definitely. I definitely ranted at the screen a little bit when he fucking used I-beams. I was like, what? Really? Get the fuck? Why would you fucking do that? Why would you make anybody want to remember that shit? But it's a gripe. It doesn't derail the film. It's stupid, and it's you shouldn't. No, don't do that. Don't claim on one hand you want to be the more faithful adaptation of the death of Superman, and then fuck with Doomsday's power set. No, don't give me that have your cake and eat it too bullshit. inaccurate recreations have had their fucking time, multiple occasions. Don't anybody feed me this crap of, oh yeah, not everything should be like the comic books. Well, you're touting this movie as supposed to be a more faithful recreation, more faithful adaptation. So yeah, the least you could do is get the power set right. So no, monstrous alterations have had their day with different returns. But whatever. It's not enough for me to hate the film for that, but it's not enough for me to praise it for it either. I hated that. So, and all the little things, and they did the fight scene kind of ends at night, which I think is also trying to fucking invoke BVS. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe that was their way of kind of hinting that the fight was way longer than what it was on screen. It wasn't overly short, but it was not presented as long as the way it was in the comic. In the comic book, they went all across fucking Metropolis, outside of Metropolis, back into Metropolis. It's like I think they went to another state midway and then came back. So the scale seemed a lot bigger in the original comic book with the Superman Doomsday fight. They convey a measure of that scale, and I guess they're just kind of using the day and night cycle to kind of hint that this fight has been going on for a lot longer than it was on screen. I mean when the Justice League was fighting those Superman, wasn't around for certain reasons, and they made their own reason as to why, because Justice League didn't think it was a big deal at first. They were proved horribly wrong. They do take a little bit of a space of time with that fight, but everybody gets to fight Doomsday. Everybody gets their moments to fight him, and and by the time it's done, they've all tried and they've all failed. So like they should. So that's fine. That's totally fine. So overall, how would I? Oh yeah, also the Superman. Oh, the hints for the next one. The Supermen are all kind of placed in this. All four are teased and placed in this movie. Like I said before, Henshaw, Eradicator, Superboy, who seems to be going for the New 52 Superboy. He has a New 52 suit, and Lex made him instead of Cadmus. So we're going New 52 on this one. I don't mind. I kind of like the New 52 version of Superboy a little bit better than his 90s kid with attitude version. I didn't hate that version, but if I had to pick, I kind of like the 52 one a little bit more. The living weapon that doesn't really know how to live just yet. So that's learning how to live. But and John Henry Irons, aka Steel, has a scene. He gets to meet Superman, and they do back reference the fact that he saved his life and brought him on to kind of idolize him in such a way. So it's a short scene, but it gets all the points across. I don't know if how much of his original storyline they're gonna keep. I don't know if hopefully they keep the part with the weapons, his weapon designs being in the hands of street hoods, of gangs and shit, and it got leaked out, and it was part of the reason he had quit before, because he didn't want to make weapons of death anymore. But somehow his design eventually got leaked when he went back home, and he found all these fucking gangs killing each other on the streets with the military grade super hardware that he had invented, which forces him to create the suit to stop this and get the guns off the streets. So hopefully some of that comes in. I hope they do that, because that's what kind of made him interesting. And the reason he even put the S, because he was inspired by Superman. I think they're removing the idea of they've been always trying to hint all this time that Soup somehow gave him a portion of his powers vaguely. When he grabbed him, they always had that little pic of him grabbing him and that weird energy transfer thing. I'm fine if they get rid of that. I'm not married to that idea. Henshaw, of course, yeah, I mentioned at the end. So there's a little bit of an after credit stuff with this. If I recall, so they wrap everything up and they hint and they leave the opening for the next one that's coming in. So it's basically a setup for the next one, but it tells its story, and I just hope they get the Superman right. That was always the part that every adaptation completely glosses over. The reign of the Superman is always the part that they just fucking gloss over, and it always annoyed me, because I really liked the Eradicator and Steel and all that, and I really liked those characters. So hopefully they get to keep it at least remotely faithful to what they were. So far with Steel, they've done fine. Henshaw's, it's a little different, but they didn't have enough time to really delve into it. So for a very short thing with him. It's way better than fucking what they did with him on Shitty Girl. I'll tell you that. Way better Hank Henshaw, Cyborg Superman, than what that garbage did. Way fucking better, hands down. Oh yeah, and I double checked. Yeah, they did mention Cadmus actually in this. They mentioned it as Project Cadmus, which I guess Luthor's directly more involved with, kind of like the way they kind of pursued in Young Justice and 52 and all that shit. So yeah, so that's okay. Okay, Cadmus is still kind of around here. They're still in it. It's just their segments, the segments from Cadmus that were initially in the movie, in the comic. I mean, the mutants attack, you know, all other shit, and Guardian and all that other stuff that's been kind of shelved. But Project Cadmus is still a thing, so there you go. I think I already mentioned the thing about Superboy leaning more to more 52-ish Superboy than the 90s one. And finally, last but not least, Eradicator, my favorite of the four Superman, my personal favorite. So far, a lot of mystery behind the character. I'm not going to say anything further, but a lot of mystery behind him. And, you know, I'm kind of personally expecting more them to lean the 52 route with his backstory a little bit, more so than the original backstory. Mainly because I think the 52 backstory doesn't really need him. It doesn't really need a direct backstory with a Superman thing. For the whole thing, him possessing Superman's body originally a long time ago in a different manner. That doesn't really need to be in. And the 52 one is just, he just appears as he is. And that kind of makes it easier to do, in a sense. So, you know, I can't wait to see him. He's my personal favorite. I love Eradicator Superman. Fucking love him. But yeah, so overall, yeah, this is a very good adaptation. Personal ratings, if I haven't said it before, I think ratings for casuals that haven't read the comic book, I'd give it like a 4 out of 5 for them. Easy. It was a very good film. Nailed all the stuff it had to. The heart, it's all there. Me personally, maybe a 3.5, only because it wasn't what I initially wanted. But it's all my tiny gripes of that is only makes it like half a point less, maybe. Maybe in the future I'll bump it up to 4, depending on how the second one is made, and hopefully it's done right, and it'll complement this piece even further. But overall, I'm very happy with it. So it's mostly just like any little tiny gripes or annoyances. They're very minuscule, and overall, I left the movie a lot happier than I did fucking BVS. I'll tell you that. I never even seen the fucking Smallville attempt at Doomsday. Now that I think about it, I only saw it briefly. He looked it okay, but he was in fucking Smallville. I mean, come on. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, so definitely, I think you guys should check it out. I think you guys should definitely check it out. And so, personal recommendation. And yeah, I'll see you guys around. And as always, you know, keep those minds open, man. See you, bye.